Why, hello, Programming 12. Welcome back, and we will be taking a look at the bouncers program again today. Gotta love those bouncers. Um, I would like to spend today talking about how we can create a bouncers sketch where we don't start with a set number of bouncers. And we aren't stuck with that same number of bouncers for the entire program. As it is right now, our array, we have to predefine every single bouncer before they start bouncing. But that's not necessarily how games work, or other projects for that matter, outside of gaming. You don't start with all the bullets in the game already created, and then you actually fire existing bullets. You create them as you need them, and then you get rid of them when you don't need them. So that's going to be a really important next step in our object-oriented programming journey. Sometimes arrays are great, and we're still going to use arrays for all sorts of things, including object-oriented programming. But it would be nice to have another tool in our tool belt to create dynamically growing and shrinking collections of objects for things like bullets and spaceships and stuff that can be created and destroyed on the fly while the project is running. So let's get started. We're going to have to learn about a new data structure that is called the array list. This is an array here, an array of bouncers. So we're going to learn a new thing about array lists. Before we get started, let's just set up our project. I've got my old bouncers program. This is the one with the collision detection between bouncers built into it. Not so important that that exists right now, but it's there. And then over here, I got a brand new sketch ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is just put in my void setup and void draw. That's going to be important. And then I'm going to bring over the bouncer class. So here's our bouncer class. It's what we made the previous class. And so I'm going to copy and paste that to a new tab. New tab. Here we go. Bouncer. And paste that in. You'll notice that some things don't work yet. For example, we don't have some of the variables, and we don't have an array, and nor will we have an array. So you might want to just comment this code out, the loop that I think goes down from here to here. You might want to just comment. I'll even comment out the int I equals 0. I think that whole block of code there, it might be nice just to comment out for now, so that we can, run our project as we go. So I'm just going to turn off that. Eventually we'll turn it back on in another video, and we'll see how we can make that collision detection work with the array lists as well. But let's just turn it off. So over here, we're going to get started working with array lists. So I'm going to go to the main tab on both programs. I guess I should put some comments up here, hey? This is going to be bouncers with array lists. That's how you spell array list, by the way. It's all one word. I'll put my name here, and I'll put the date. Happy October for those of you who are watching it as we make it. If you're in the future, how's it going in the future? I hope it's great out there in the future, whenever year and month you're looking at this. Can only hope it's better than COVID times. So anyways, here I am. I'm going to make an array list. Notice it turns blue. That's a keyword in processing in Java. And the way you make it is with these angle brackets. I know, we got a lot of brackets and braces and parentheses and stuff. Well, here's a new set for you. I'm not sure why they chose to do it that way, but they did. So here we go. What you do is you put the type of thing that's going to go in your list right here. And then you give it a name, like bouncers. So this line of code here is very similar to this line of code. This on the right-hand side over here, that makes an array of bouncers, whereas this code here on the left-hand side, it makes an array list of bouncers. And again, the primary difference, other than some of the way it works will be different, is that an array list can grow and shrink. It's not locked with a set number of things. So that means we aren't going to need this variable here. We don't need to know how many we're going to make. So we can just leave it alone. So that's great. So I'm going to just leave that off. So then we'll go into setup. Maybe I'll just steal some of these things here. I'll do, whatever I did from before, full screen, FX 2D. You don't have to do this, by the way. You can make it just whatever size your program was. Maybe you made 800 by 800. Oh, sure, I'll put in rect mode center, I guess, and color mode HSB. And that's specifically for me and my program because that's what I had in my old bouncers. So if you don't have that and don't want that, then please feel free to leave that out of your new program. All right, but now we're getting into some array stuff that we need to learn how to do with array lists. So check this out. There's a line of code here that says, let's stretch this out maybe. I don't know, can I? Yeah, here we go. And I'll go up so my face isn't blocking it. So our next line of code is important. It's what actually makes the array. So before that, it was just a name. It didn't actually have an array built into it. So we need to do a similar thing for array lists. So I'll scroll that up here, and we'll think about how we're going to do that with lists. So with lists, we are going to do something similar. It's going to say bouncers equals new array list bouncer, parenthesis, parenthesis. So that's a mouthful. It looks like a lot, but hopefully you see some similarities there between these two. And you'll probably notice a little bit of differences as well. For example, in the array, we had to say how many pages we want, how many elements we can store, how many bouncers we can store ahead of time. And no such thing is being done over here. Later on, we will talk about why we can put a number in here, but it's not really the time and place to do that yet. But we could theoretically put in a number in this parenthesis here and reserve a certain amount of space. But it's not the same, so I don't want to equate the two right now. So we'll just leave it exactly as it is. That's me creating the array list, and bouncers is now ready to store some bouncers. So that's great. If we take a look over here, you can see, hey, the next thing I would do with arrays is go through all of the pages of the array, every index, and be like, okay, I'm going to make a bouncer on this page, page 0. I'm going to make one on page 1, page 2, page 3, all the way up to num bouncers minus 1, so page 999. We aren't doing that over here. We want to start with no bouncers, but we could, if we wanted to, put bouncers in at this point. If you wanted to start with some bouncers, you could make a loop and add some bouncers, but we won't do it. We'll do it only on the fly for this example. All right, so that's good. So what's next? So you might be like, how do we get bouncers in? We'll do that in a little bit. So the next thing is going to be actually the draw function. Let's take a look at the draw function of both of these. So in the draw function, of course, we have the loop where it goes through all of the myriad of bouncers, and it animates each one. It tells each bouncer to act and each bouncer to show. So that's fantastic. And I'll do something similar. I'm almost tempted to copy and paste this over. It's pretty close to the same, but I'll resist that temptation. But this is what we're going to recreate. So let's first start off with background 0. Sure, we can put background 0. And we are going to need a loop, so I want to do that. And we are going to have a while thing, so I need the condition for the while loop. And that's going to have, oops, we kind of need a little bit more space. It's going to have our braces, so we should need to have an open and close brace. But you'll notice that, num bouncers, we don't have that anymore. So how do you know how long to loop for if you don't have a variable? And remember, this number will change as we grow and shrink. So when we start, it'll be 0, but later on, it'll be however many bouncers we have. So the way you do it is to ask the array list itself, how many things are inside you? So I'm going to say this instead. I'm going to say bouncers, that's the name of the list, dot size. Ugh, spelling. Size was hard. Dot size. So this is basically like num bouncers. It's basically the same as this thing here, except this will automatically update itself as the array list grows and shrink. So this will always be correct to be the number of bouncers that's in your list. So that's basically what num bouncers is becoming now. Bouncers.size. Okay, so the next step is we do want to do bouncers sub I.act, bouncers sub I.show. We want to do something similar. And array lists are similar in that they store all the bouncers or whatever objects they are on pages with index numbers. So we'll have a similar kind of idea, and I will be used for that page number. It's just a little bit different on how it gets the particular bouncer off that page. So there's actually a couple ways to do this, and I'm really trying to decide what's the best way. So I'm going to do it this way now, but I might change it in future classes. But I will really make a point to indicate what I have changed and why I've changed it later on. So, this is a good way to start. So instead of saying bouncers sub I dot act, what I'm going to say is bouncers dot get I dot act. So this in ArrayLists is very much similar to this. There is going to be a difference later on that I won't talk about right now, but for what we need, this is a good place to start. This is a good sort of similar, and they do look similar, right? This one is using square brackets. This is using dot get, but either way, we're getting the bouncer that's stored on page I and telling it to act on either program. Okay, so similar as bouncers dot get I dot show. And then we still need the I++ to go to the next page. So this code is exactly the loop we want to make array list bouncers to act and show. So bouncers stored in the array list. So here's our main tab. It's looking pretty good. And hopefully it makes sense to compare it with the main tab of our array version. And I will have these uploaded to GitHub so that you can see the difference. And you can kind of go one at a time if you want to. And I would definitely recommend you building these as well so you can see them in front of you on your screen and see the difference. Of course, right now there's no bouncers. Like if I run this program, it will go full screen and we'll see no bouncers. That's good. That's what we expected because we actually haven't added any bouncers in. So I'm going to stop this video, and in the next video we're going to take a look at how we can add bouncers on the fly, and eventually how we can remove bouncers as well. Okay, so stay tuned for the next video on adding bouncers. Oh, I don't know. I OBS'd something.